The proposed national curriculum has been panned by experts right across the board. The ditching of Western history, as you know, this overemphasis of Indigenous issues. Now some of the nation's leading mathematicians are saying the draft curriculum does not add up. Dozens of academics say the curriculum's endorsement of problem solving as an approach, with all those examples about Indigenous maths syllabus questions, means that students aren't going to be taught the basic math skills they need, which means Australia could fall further down the international rankings on numeracy. For more on this, I'm joined from Sydney by Research Fellow in Education Policy at the Centre for Independent Studies, Glenn Fahey. Glenn, talk to me. There's a lot of sort of trendy education language here, bureaucratic language. When we're talking about maths, the focus away from math skills, what most of us would have understood is sort of the binary, it's wrong or it's right, how you do a fraction, how you do long division, all of that sort of stuff, to this whole complex world of problem solving. And problem solving is the new way forward and comes at a cost of all those things I just talked about. Explain the difference.
Okay, so I mean, mathematics is all about problem solving, of course. It's how you go about problem solving that's really at issue here. And there's really two schools of thought when it comes to maths. One of those is that you need to be able to have foundational skills to be good at doing maths, because of course, problems are you applying the knowledge you already have. But there's a really big push, and this is what's really present in the draft curriculum's proposal, and that's to reinforce, and you mentioned language, this is the language, exploration, experimentation, and investigation. Now, all of that sounds really neat, but what that means for teachers is actually really complicated. It means it actually green lights a particular kind of approaches, and we call this problem-based learning or problem-based approaches to teaching. It's quite prescriptive in that respect, which is quite unusual for a curriculum to do. But what it effectively does is telling teachers that they should allow their kids to use trial and error as the primary method to introduce new content, because kids should try out problems, explore, experiment, investigate. And if they get the answer right, then it's hoped, and it's very much a hope in this case, that they'll be able to somehow backwards engineer the knowledge required to solve that problem and then generalize that knowledge. Of course, that's just education. That just doesn't make any educational sense. Students learn when they have those foundational concepts and are taught step by step how to solve certain problems. And the evidence is very clear that what's important when it comes to problem-based problem solving is that it's actually not just this generic skill. There's no such thing as a problem-solving skill. There's such thing as being very good and well practiced at problems. There's such a thing in the education world of having great mastery of foundational content, but there is no such thing as having great problem-solving skills. Yet that's flagged quite often in this proposed new curriculum.
I mean, problem solving, though, gets layered on the basics. I mean, once you get the basics right, once you can do times table, once you know how to divide, then you apply problems to it. But I can't understand why they're starting with the problem solving and basically letting kids in something like maths muddle through as if there's somehow 10 different right answers. Well, there's not, and there's certainly not in primary school, high school maths, that they're muddling through because we're more intent on giving them a problem like the area of Indigenous grain cultivation versus the area of current day grain cultivation, as opposed to understanding how you work out area, how you work out circumference, how do you work out, how many wethers in a mob of sheep. I mean, they're all straight maths problems, and we're getting away from that into basically this moral indoctrination as opposed to basic mathematics.
Well, I would add so what you have there are some great examples of applied problem solving there. But the problem is that you can't teach those concepts through the applied case. You actually have to learn all that fundamental stuff through what we call a worked example approach. And then you may be able to translate that knowledge in applications further. But going straight to the applications is just absolutely debunked in the education research literature. And it's absolutely puzzling why that would be promoted in the curriculum. The curriculum really should be setting out...
Sorry to interrupt, Glenn. I just want to show this to viewers at home because I think this is incredibly important. It backs in what you're just saying there. I mean, we've been going backwards for 2 decades. if we keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, well, that's the definition of insanity, right? So look at these numbers. 2003, we were number 10 in the world, 10 in the world in terms of maths. In 2019, we're now 29th in the world. That's the worst and steepest drop of any country other than Finland. So surely, if we keep doing more of this stuff, getting away from the fundamentals and getting into basically the fashion, the fads, the woke warrior stuff into the curriculum, if we do more of that, surely we're going to move out of being number 29 into something a whole lot worse, aren't we?
Well, I mean, 29 is not a good place to be. We're in the middle of the country rankings in PISA, and that's a far cry from where we started. So they've got a few problems here, Peter. One of those is that many people that work in education faculties around Australia, those that produce the research that we need, are simply not interested in evidence. It's quackery, it's fads, it's anecdotes. It's not a genuine commitment to evidence or the science of learning. And I mean, the other issues you have is that kids are coming to school less ready for learning in maths. That's something that was flagged in another international study recently. And of course, the other issue is we've had a decades-long shortage of qualified maths teachers. So particularly when we have complex, vague language in curriculum, this is making their lives really difficult, especially when it's giving them prescriptions on teaching that simply don't add up when they get to the classroom.
So tell me, Glenn, from here on in, given it's a consensus model, all these ministers will sit around the table and they'll yay it or nay it. We've got to scrap it and start again, don't we?
Well, look, at a minimum, my plea is that we can just follow the educational science on this one. There's still time. I can encourage people with the public submissions are still open up until Thursday this week. So please register. People that have got knowledge in the space, or even parents that have experienced things, they can make a submission to the public review. And also, I'd encourage people to join the open letter that's available online. Again, that's open to sign for the next couple of days. That's available at akara-mathsletter@wordpress.com. It's through these means that we can influence the process. Unfortunately, we've started. There's a train that's been moving, and that's the national curriculum. It's been going for some time now. It hasn't just come up overnight. I'm disappointed in where that's come, and I believe that the minister and others have expressed that disappointment as well on this program and others. What we need here is to ensure that the right voices are heard, not just the quacks in the education faculties.
Here, Glenn. Couldn't have said it better. Thank you for your time, Glenn Fahey, Centre for Independent Studies there on the Maths Curriculum. Thanks, Glenn.
Pleasure.